Welcome back to Listen to This, a podcast talking about music with two people who are by no means music scholars. I'm Alex.
And I'm Dani.
And we have a jam-packed episode in store for you guys today. But first, Dani, what have you been listening to recently?
Guess who came out with the new song?
Is it Halsey?
Yes.
God, I'm good at this.
Halsey came out with Be Kind with Marshmello recently.
I meant to listen to that for the purpose of this so I could beat you to it, but of course you'd already listened to it. I'd forgotten to.
As soon as it came out, it gives me like a little notification, like new music from Halsey and Marshmello. I'm like, sign me up.
Gotta do it.
So immediately I started listening to that. I like it. It's kind of a little slower, but it's definitely not like the summer anthem, but it's nice. And I appreciate anything Halsey comes out with. So, but otherwise, have you ever heard of Lindsay Sterling?
Yeah, I had a huge crush on her in high school. The first video I ever saw of her back when I was really into The Legend of Zelda, it was a cover she did, and she was dressed as Link, and she had a horse, and she was playing her violin, and I'm like, this girl's cool. This girl's cool.
Oh my god. Have you ever heard of Don't Let This Feeling Fade by her?
No, the only big original songs I know by her were from her first EP, and then the song Shatter Me with Lizzie Hale.
Yeah, I love that song.
That was pretty good. That's a good message too. Anyway, the song you were discussing.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, man, I can't remember quite what album it's off of, but "Don't Let This Feeling Fade" by Lindsay Sterling. There's some featured artist in there. It doesn't really say it, or at least not what it shows me on the bottom.
Okay.
But it's more uplifting. When I used to listen to that when I was driving to work, and I was driving back from my hometown to Milwaukee. And that came up on my shuffle, and I was like, I haven't heard this song in forever. So I'm like driving down HorrorCon's like main street, just blasting it. I'm like, also, so Doja Cat, have you ever heard of her? She's kind of getting bigger.
Yes, I can say yes for two reasons. Because one will actually get brought up later in a soundtrack in Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
And then the other is she has that song Say So. It's like really big on TikTok.
Yeah, Say So with Doja Cat and the Nicki Minaj remix is my favorite.
Oh yeah? Okay.
She has a very nostalgic feel to me because I remember like going and listening to like Super Bass and stuff, and I still have my little shitty MP3. I don't know. I really like Nicki Minaj. So whenever she comes out with something new, especially now that she's kind of in retirement, so she kind of comes in and out, anytime I can get new songs of any kind from her, I'm like, okay. It's gotten to the point I've gone back to Pink Friday, that album.
Okay.
You're like, you have no idea.
So, two things on the thought of Nicki Minaj. One, before I even heard the song, Super Bass, I knew what she looked like, so when I saw what the title was, I thought it was meant to be read as Superb Ass. Because I thought, because that was a big part of her identity in her early career was her body. So I'm like, oh, she must be doing like a little wink to it.
I'm never gonna look at that the same way ever again.
Because it's all one word. So I'm like, oh, this must be a little innuendo or something. I don't know if it or whatever. And then I sincerely think she's a really good artist. I just don't like it when she's rapping and she starts talking like this. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, I really want to like the song Starships, but I only want to hear the chorus. I don't want to hear her verses because I think her voice sounds ridiculous. That being said, no disrespect to her, and I know she has her like alter egos like Roman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The one episode of Lopez Tonight I watched happened to have her as one of the guests on it. And that's how it's like George Lopez talking to Nicki Minaj. Is how I learned a lot about her in her early days. But I have nothing against her. She can keep doing her thing. It's just usually not for me.
Yeah. I was listening to some of her older stuff like Va Va Voom, which is, you probably have no idea what that song is. Okay, it was like a weird, the song, like the EDM sort of songs you'd hear in like high school sort of deal? That's kind of like the same feeling it has.
I'm actually not quite sure what you mean.
It's like club music, but very aggressivly
You have to realize when I was in high school, dubstep was
Oh,
the
that's
big thing.
true. I keep forgetting how much older you are than me.
Wow, okay.
Okay, but there was like a time where like in a 3-year difference, music and everything kind of shifted on a dime and everything started going, it started going from more like live instruments to like studio tune to,
thing, yeah.
So I keep forgetting that we're at that point where that shift happened like in between our schoolings.
Yeah, like for you, your emo days are in middle school. For me, my emo days are in high school, kind of thing. There's a gap, a slight gap.
Oh, speaking of emo, so no, this
Speaking of my forte.
Speaking of my forte, So I keep talking about this album from Palais Royale, but Bastards.
Yeah.
I heard a new song. I think it's been released for a little bit now, but it's a single off of it called Little Bastards.
Okay.
I'm so excited for this album now. Like,
Yeah.
if this is what the rest of the album is going to sound like, and I know they have Masochist on it too, which is a great song that they usually only played live. So it was super cool to hear that song live. Everything is starting to get a little, like, tighter. Like, the bass, guitar is shining out more. Like, the drums.
A more refined sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's getting lower. Like, there's not so much kind of, like, the loose guitar strings that you used to hear, especially for Get Higher and... what's the other song that's escaping me? Mr. Doctor Man.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the rest of this is going to sound like.
Do you consider Palais Royale emo? I just consider them alternative.
They are alternative, but then I see their fashion look, and
Aesthetically speaking, yeah. That's like My Chemical Romance meets a circus.
Honestly, like, they used to be called the Gentleman, the Vampire, and the Pirate, just because of how their dress was. Otherwise, what have you been listening to?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked. So, weirdest, I can't even imagine what spurred this on. Looking at my library, I downloaded this at 11:30 at night. Do you remember JoJo? Mm-hmm. Do you remember her song Too Little Too Late?
No!
Yeah, I downloaded it at that time for some reason, because I guess I really wanted to listen to it at 11:30 at night one time. Are
you doing okay? Going
Hey,
down memory road?
back when I was in middle school and JoJo was 16 when Too Little Too Late came out, I had a crush on her. She's very pretty. But actually, because of that, I don't know what you want to call it, rediscovery, I did some research on JoJo. She's kind of like, I can fit her into the same category as like Mandy Moore. Like two teen girls who were doing bubblegum pop and kind of had some hit. Like Mandy Moore had Candy or something like that.
Yep.
Then JoJo had this one and she had, what was it, Please or something like that. Minor hits. They hit the charts, but they would never be number one kind of thing. They were some of those girls and they kind of fell off the face of the planet. Well, JoJo has made a comeback. Like I think this year was her first album in like 13 years or something like that. Or
I want to say
there was some big
I
gap there in the middle.
Yeah, I remember when she was starting to make a comeback, and all of a sudden my Facebook timeline was nothing but, hey, so who's going to this concert, or who wants to go to this?
Well, the thing is, she went from teen girl pop music to the most recent album I listened to. It's kind of like chill R&B stuff.
Really?
And thematically very different. Like, you can kind of tell she's writing more of her songs, not the studio. Because, you know, there's songs about heartbreak or whatever in the 2000s and late 90s. But this one, a lot, like, some of it's about, you know, getting high and fucking around and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, JoJo's changed a bit. She's only 29. She's still really young. Yeah, I would assume she was like mid-30s or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's still a baby. But even more interesting, so she was with a record label for her first two albums, and then I guess she changed, or maybe that was when she kind of dipped out of the music scene for a bit, and when she came back, there was a big dispute with her and that record label, because she wanted to put those albums on like streaming services like Spotify and whatever, and contractually they couldn't meet an agreement. The record company, I guess, was just kind of being bitches about it. Like, no, you can't have this. So JoJo re-recorded her first two albums. She actually covered herself to have the rights to the songs or the covers of the songs to put on streaming platforms. And there is a difference hearing a 16-year-old sing and a 28-year-old sing.
Yeah.
So like they're different. I can't even say if they're better or worse, but I thought that was the strangest thing. She had to do covers of her own albums in their entirety.
Like what Taylor Swift is going to have to start doing because of that whole issue.
Yeah, I know
with
she's having problems with her studio.
Yeah, she left, was it Scooter Braun or something to that effect? Left that record label, went to Universal, and now like they have her whole discography. Right. She's like, I have to re-record everything again just to have that song back. Like that's insane to me.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, well, because like, there's I watched some video about copyright when it comes to music. There's like I'm sure these are not the actual titles, but there's basically like the recording rights and the artistry rights or something like that. Like we have the rights to this studio recording. You can't use this, but you can still sing it live. Yeah, kind of thing without paying us royalties, which I think is bizarre. And I would love to know the story that set that precedent, that set that law in motion.
Yeah.
Other music I've just been listening to, like I really hate to use the term rediscovering because it makes it sound more like a bigger moment than it actually is. But I've just been going back and listening to a lot of things like old John Mayer. I have had so many covers of Lit's song "My Own Worst Enemy," but I'd never had the original. So I listened to the original. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is really good. Like Old Linkin Park, the Wallflower song "One Headlight." I found that but I had heard it in a trailer for a new movie coming out, The King of Staten Island. I'm like, and then like Cobra Starship. Things that I was bummed that I knew and I didn't say. Dance Gavin Dance had a new album come out like the week we recorded last time. Mm-hmm. The day, I guess this would date last episode, but the day we recorded, Dermot Kennedy had a new EP come out. It was just not acoustic, but new versions of 3 previously released songs. It was pretty neat, like kind of a nice gift during quarantine because he had to cancel a bunch of tours and stuff. And he's like, hey, you guys can have this.
You guys can have this. Here you go.
I finally got around to listening to American Football's second and third albums because I've listened to the first one to death, but I never really listened to the other two, and they're both certainly good.
American Football, is that like...
You've never heard of American Football?
No.
They're like the reason that emo became a thing in the mid-aughts.
For a second when you looked at me like that, I thought you meant like you're listening to old like football like episodes.
Oh no, like actual football games?
Yeah.
No, the band American Football.
Okay.
No, like I swear, like their song "Never Meant" is a huge meme. No exaggeration. I could do an entire episode talking about American football and the impact it has. Like this, they're probably the quintessential math rock band. But this whole album is about like a heartbreak thing, which would then lead into bands like, you know how in the mid-aughts bands always had like that emo album, like where they got dark and serious. Like Sum 41 did it, Simple Plan did it, like Newfound Glory did it. Where like we're talking about real things. A lot of that was spurred on, and the precursor, the whatever the stage before early adopter is, was American Football. 3 dudes in college who made an album one time because they wanted to make a band, and the band broke up after that one album because they all went on to go have a life. Then in 2014 they came back together.
Holy shoot.
So American Football's second and third albums, I was listening to those.
I've learned something today.
It's such an important band. Especially for our genres of music, it's such a big deal. Like obviously it isn't as loud or like dark, but just emo in the emotional sense, not in the angsty sense.
I feel like a lot of newer, I don't know what you want to call them, but like basement bands like the Wonder Years and Newfound Glory and stuff still kind of keep to that feeling a lot more because like that's kind of the comparison I was drawing from when I was listening to that.
Well, those guys are more pop punk, so it's more like upbeat. But if you would take those bands and mix them with like say the Smiths, that'd basically be what American Football is with more math rock involved.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, I had forgotten when it comes to Hootie and the Blowfish. I only really knew like their big singles. What? You don't like Hootie and the Blowfish?
No, it's just...
What's your second stupidest opinion?
It was just funny because you went from American Football to Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah,
it was just such a 180.
I like Hootie. Darius Rucker. Oh my God, Darius Rucker is an amazing musician. But I knew their biggest songs. You know, "Only Want to Be with You." Their cover of "I Go Blind," "Make Her Cry." But then I had rediscovered
I Go Bland.
I had rediscovered I forgot how much I love the song "State Your Peace," and like the music that I make is actually like I have to assume subconsciously I was pulling from the song "State Your Peace." I was jamming to that so many days in a row, and there was like a 4-day span. And everybody I talked to, once there was a lull in conversation, I would be like, "So, what's your favorite Hootie and the Blowfish song?" Ooh, one last thing I wanted to talk about. For the first time in 4 years, Raleigh Ritchie's going to have an album come out at the end of this month.
I saw that.
He had a single come out a week ago or so. The song "Aristocrats," and it was really good. And the music video was really clever and creative, and I liked it a lot. And then he doesn't drop did the thing. Yeah, by the way, there's going to be an album in like 3 weeks, and everyone's like, "What?"
I'm so happy because after you showed me, I think, one of his music videos, and then I realized that was the same guy who sang
"Time in a Tree."
Yeah, "Time in a Tree." So I went back and started listening to it, and if you look on my Spotify, like you can tell when it happened because it's like random stuff, and also it's like Raleigh Ritchie and "Lost" from Dermot Kennedy and all that, and then Spotify popped up and it was like new coming music, and it told me, and I was like,
yeah, because I think Me, Myself, and I came out probably a year ago. So he's released 3 singles from Andy will be the new album. Because Raleigh Ritchie's name is Jacob Anderson, so Andy. I don't think Me, Myself, and I is actually a single on the album. But he did Time in a Tree, like, last January, then Me, Myself, and I in, like, April or May.
Yeah.
And then a year later, he releases Aristocrats. Yeah, on Instagram, he kept saying, like, I'm working on a new album. And he kept saying, that no tentative release date, just know that I am working on it. Then he began doing just, like, I don't remember if it was a hashtag or what, but it was just, like, RR20. So, like, oh, in 2020, he'll have something coming out. And then, yeah. So I'm very excited for that. And yeah, Time in a Tree is actually, I didn't realize how big that song was, because when I mentioned Raleigh Ritchie in the past, people would be like, oh, who's that? I usually go with Grey Worm from Game of Thrones. But now people are like, oh yeah, my friend showed me his song, Time in a Tree. Like Mel did for you. Just last night talking to one of the guys at work, he was like, oh yeah, my cousin showed me his song, Time in a Tree. I liked it. I'm like, yeah.
It was like one of those songs too. I remember when I showed it to my friend Carter. He's the one that we share music all the time. And I showed him that and he goes, oh yeah, I know this song. So we were listening to it and trying to go from hiking spot to hiking spot. And so that's like the one thing every time I hear that song is just...
So you hear Time in a Tree and you think of your time with trees?
Yeah, I think of my time with trees back in Baraboo.
I'm just really excited that he is actually becoming famous for being a musician, not just an actor. I'm so stoked for him. Anyway, we've been talking about music for 20 minutes without going into the actual subject matter we had planned on discussing.
Ooh.
So, soundtracks for movies and TV shows. We'll probably also mention maybe some video games here and there.
Yeah.
But the big stipulation right now is that they are soundtracks and not scores. So usually a produced song by a band or singer, oftentimes for the soundtrack, but not inherently. And we won't be focusing on like the composed pieces of background music during a scene of dialogue kind of thing. This will be like usually hit singles that come out to help hype up the release of a movie kind of thing, usually. But anyway.
Compilation albums that go with it.
Yeah, essentially. Take it away, Dani.
Ooh, okay. So, one that I want to mention that I think is a really cool idea that was done was by the group surrounding American Satan. So that is actually a movie featuring Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria, Andy Bursack from Black Veil Brides, and a few other people, like Maria Brink is in it for a hot second, Taylor Momsen, a lot of like metal.
What does Nuts from Pele Morale, you said?
Yeah, he sings in place of Andy Bursack, because when they're filming the movie, it's about this band that goes to LA, tries to be famous, ends up making a deal with the devil. It's very campy. Everybody who's seen it really likes it. I want to see it, but I can't bring myself to do it yet.
Why?
Because I'm a person who associates people with certain things, and it's like a very tight association. So every time I see Andy Bursack or Ben Bruce, I'm thinking, oh, these are real people. And so it kind of breaks that illusion for me a little bit. So when I see them like acting and like
as characters,
and doing stuff as characters, I'm just like, oh man, this isn't, I know you're faking it kind of deal. So it's just getting through that and actually getting down to sit and watch it is just a goal of mine, especially now that quarantine's happening. I'm sure I'll actually sit down and watch it.
At a certain point, you'll break.
Yeah, because they have a spin-off show, Paradise City, that's coming out. The
grass is green and the girls are pretty?
I knew you were going to do
Asking
that.
for a friend.
Something like that, just a lot darker. It's still set in LA. It's a whole biblical thing about metal music and the devil. But they did come up with a concept band that is throughout the American Satan. It's Andy Bursack's band called The Relentless. Now, he couldn't get the rights to use his own voice in the movie. It's really weird. It's a contractual thing, I think, either for Black Veil Brides or his alter Andy Black thing. But This is where Palais Royale comes in, because they used Remington Leith's voice in place of Andy Bursack's singing voice when he's on stage. And so all of that released music is Remington Leith's voice in it. And in my opinion, it makes it a lot better. Hearing Remington Leith cover Personal Jesus, which was originally from Depeche Mode and then covered by Marilyn Manson, and then that kind of became that genre song, is super cool. His vocals are perfect for that sort of song and that sort of setup. And they just did a really good job with like that concept for that band. But then the comp soundtrack for it too is really cool, because it has like covers of, there's Mother by Prep School, some In This Moment, a little bit of Andy Black, some Palais Royale, because obviously.
Is it only covers, or is there some original stuff?
There's some original stuff. Like, they have original stuff from Andy and Remington and Palais and all that. But then they do have some, like, a few covers, but it's covers of, like, older metal genre sort of thing. So
which I assume
cool.
just work into the story of the movie/show. Okay.
So they did a very good job with keeping with that entire concept from start to finish. Like, it all kind of feels like it molds very well for the feeling they were trying to get.
Okay. So this movie was a big deal even outside just an arguably niche audience?
Yeah, because it wasn't just you have all these artists that a lot of people grew up with and know, but it also kind of covers, like, the same sort of thing that kind of cult movies follow, where it has that how bands like the Motley Crue started and stuff like that, where you have that dark underbelly to it.
Okay.
And this kind of just brings it out more. It's like, hey, we're going to make a whole storyline about it.
Via a fictional story. Okay, interesting.
I will watch it one of these days.
It's got Denise Richards, it's got Malcolm McDowell, it's got Drake Bell.
Drake Bell is the bad guy in the first movie. Denise Richards is Andy Bursack's mother, I'm pretty sure, in the movie.
Cat Faust.
Johnny
Faust.
Yeah.
Their last name is Faust. Oh, wow, it's so on the nose. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, did you have anything more to say on that? I got really distracted by the actual movie aspect, not the music.
I know. I think it's an interesting... I bring it up because it's an interesting melding between a music scene, a music genre, and then the movie itself. So I think it was a really well done piece, and it had all the accompanying albums, and the soundtrack to it was just like icing on the cake for a movie of that scale. So
for sure, and like that's kind of like a more modern rendition and a more serious. I assume the movie is it's a winking type of serious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is dark, right? Huh? Right? Just going into more concepts of movie albums and TV albums. Like the big behemoth will probably always be Disney. Because they were known for always, like, from day one with Snow White, their movies were musicals where songs were written and performed for each of these things.
If you don't think Disney musicals and I'll Make a Man Out of You from the Mulan series doesn't pop into your head, you're lying to me.
So it does. It certainly does. But the first two movies that pop in my head when I think Disney musicals, probably just because of the time I grew up, are Hercules and Tarzan.
Ooh, yes.
Well, Tarzan was actually another big stepping stone for them because they usually had musical writers do their music, at least around the time of the Renaissance. For Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, they would have, like, I don't know if he actually did any work himself, but people like Andrew Lloyd Webber and stuff, people who would make musicals would also make the soundtracks. But then with Tarzan, they got Phil Collins from Genesis to do essentially the entire thing with the entire soundtrack. They had different guys score the song, the film for songs, but the soundtrack was primarily Phil Collins and getting more established people involved into the music production of their stuff. And then obviously Disney's formula has carried on to modern day. I mean, we just saw Frozen 2 a few months ago, and they're always breathtaking. The only problem is that, especially in the case of, like, Let It Go, it gets so overplayed that the song becomes a joke, and it's like, oh, Disney is oversaturating it, but it doesn't stop it from being an objectively good song.
Yeah.
And then there are... Now, this isn't as much the case nowadays. It was more so in the late aughts, early 10s, where there would be a signature song for a soundtrack. Like we were saying before, the Bond movies, they almost always have one. Like, the most modern, most recent one is Billie Eilish's No Time to Die for the movie No Time to Die.
Yeah, then there was Adele
with Skyfall.
Like, Sam Smith, did he
do something for Spectre, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And then, like, some of the superhero ones, like Aquaman had Everything You Need. Justice League covered Come Together. The Lego Movie, which isn't a musical, had Everything Is Awesome. And then the sequel had Catchy Song. And then by no means do we have to focus on this, but then there are oftentimes joke songs. Not oftentimes. Occasionally it's joke songs, like from the movie Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. Zac Efron and Adam Devine made a song called Staying Life, which is just meant to be a joke song that goes over the credits.
Oh my god.
Just silly stuff like that, which I actually do sincerely appreciate. And then shifting a little bit here, there are things like the Charlie's Angels soundtrack from the most recent movie, which I don't understand the hate it got. I mean, like, it's by
Was it good?
It isn't like it doesn't deserve an Oscar, but it is not bad by any means.
Yeah.
I could see Naomi Scott punch somebody in the face, and that was rad. But they had songs written. Now, it was primarily by female musicians. I think maybe even exclusively by female musicians, from the recording to the actual songwriting stuff. Which, I mean, makes sense. It's a show/movie about kick-ass women. Why not just go with that? But they had like songs like "How It's Done." They had some other bigger single, but I think "How It's Done" is a superior one. And those, they never really got radio play. It was one of those albums that was released digitally to get digital hype on it. Like, they didn't inherently care about making sure it got played on over the waves. They just wanted people to know the album was coming out, or the album was out, so that they could get them hyped for the movie.
Yeah.
And things like that always make sense, because then you go and see the movie and you hear the song that you liked from the album, and you're like, ah. Kind of cool.
Like I did when I heard "Experiment on Me" finally at Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
I just about jumped out of my seat. It was bad.
Good segue there, though, because then we can go on to Birds of Prey.
I loved that album. I'm still listening to it. It's all women, too, which is really cool.
Is it all women?
Yeah.
Oh. I think the standout song from that album is "Sway With Me," which samples the song "Sway With Me" in it.
Oh, you don't say.
But Gallic Zara, I like her voice. She has a powerful voice, and she even goes like falsetto for a bit there in the first verse. I'm like, this girl kicks ass. You mentioned Doja Cat before with her, and then she has a song on there, "Boss Bitch," which I feel weird jamming out to, because no part of that song is for me. But
it honest to God makes me, every time I hear that song, that one and "Bad Memory" by K-Flay.
Yeah.
All I want to do is dance.
Yeah.
It's super ridiculous, but it makes me super hyped for summer. So I'm wondering too, like, a lot of these songs.
It's interesting because we saw it in January.
Yeah. I was hyped for summer by the time that came out. I was like, all right, let's go. Because, like, and then "Experiment on Me," that's a hybrid between Halsey and members from Bring Me the Horizon. So Ollie and Jordan, they helped her produce that song. And you can hear their influence on
Definitely.
it very, very clearly. She starts screaming and stuff. Like, at the end, I'm like, whoo, I want to see more of this, Halsey.
You had played it for us. Like, after we had seen the movie, on driving back, you played it for us, and Mal were like, holy shit, okay.
Yeah, it's Halsey going heavy, but it's a very good, it doesn't feel forced, which I think is important.
Because the song builds up to it nicely and stuff. Other songs just from that album, like the cover of "Hit Me With Your Best Shot" by Adana, the slow, dark, jury thing.
Yeah.
I had, in full honesty, I had thought that song wouldn't really have the same impact without the movie attached to it, but listening to it solo and playing it for people are like, oh, this is a very interesting cover of it. And then I also like Journey Smollett Bell's cover of "It's a Man's World," because she doesn't like a lounge kind of style, and I think it works really well. And I didn't realize what a nice voice she had, so I think it sounds really nice.
And there's one song, "Lonely Gun" by Sin. I think CYN. I think it's
probably
Sin.
Sin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good song. It's a little slower, and it's poppy, but not the sort of pop that you usually hear on the radio. It's kind of like the lower alternative pop.
Kind of like the Gautier version of pop.
Yeah, where it's like, it has that hard, like, pop beat to it, but then the lyrics and her voice don't really match with it, but it does it in a way that works really well for the song.
Okay.
And it definitely gives you, like, Harley Quinn Joker vibes. So
Naturally,
I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like a lot went into making an album like this, just in the idea of like what matches and what doesn't, because everything, even from the Halsey and Bring Me the Horizon to the slower, what is it?
Adana.
Everything matches. Nothing really feels forced in it.
Agreed. One thing I just want to throw in the middle here. There's a movie that came out in 2004, I want to say, called "Shall We Dance." It was a American remake of I want to say Korean film. And in it, there is a Peter Gabriel cover of the Magnetic Fields song, "The Book of Love."
Wow, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, I don't have a script here, I promise. Now, the Peter Gabriel cover of "Book of Love" is probably more well known for being the song that plays over the last the last part of Scrubs' last episode of season 8 prior to being brought back in the failed season 9. But the original series finale of Scrubs had JD looking into the future, and the song "The Book of Love" played in its entirety, and it was really good. But it's from the movie Shall We Dance, and I still like the way it's used in there. I have nothing against the Magnetic Fields original version of it, but because of Peter Gabriel, the original lead singer of Genesis, because of his cover of Book of Love, it is now, I think, I can pretty confidently say, one of the most covered songs ever. And most people they go away from the kind of like folksier rock tone to the more symphonic, slow, nicer thing. And there's other versions, of course. But yeah, and then and the Peter Gabriel version is one of my favorite songs ever. Like, it's in my top 5. It's so well done.
Dang.
Yeah. Oh my God, on my list of soundtrack things, I have Team America World Police's "America Fuck Yeah." When the South Park guys make a song, it's gonna be interesting. One thing we can actually talk about, and we don't have to dwell on it for too long, but the more or less prequel to Birds of Prey with Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
That was DC's big foray into getting a bunch of musicians together and saying, we're going to make an album, we want you to be involved in it. So the two big ones are Sucker for Pain and Heathens.
And Purple Lamborghini.
Purple Lamborghini, yeah.
Yeah, Rick Ross.
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, I love Sucker for Pain. And I'm not a 21 Pilots fan, but I do like Heathens. I think that's a really good song.
I like Heathens, and I especially like the music video that they put together with it.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Oh, it's set up on the set of Suicide Squad.
Okay.
But it just has the main singer, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he's just walking down, like, all the jail cells, and so you see a lot of, like, different characters throughout, and then you look to the other side, and it's the drummer playing. So it's super cool, and I really like the setup, because it's kind of simple, but it wasn't, like, overly dramatized, I guess, especially for it being for a movie and stuff like that.
For a big blockbuster,
yeah. So they still didn't, like, let it go to their head and have this over-dramatic music video that can get really cheesy.
Almost distracting to an extent. Okay, then another concept is what I briefly touched on before is musicals, like Les Mis, that has a theatrical adaptation, Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, original I have the OG Phantom of the Opera.
Like the 2004 one?
No, the like Technicolor just came out. OG.
But then there are also the original musicals, my favorite being Greatest Showman. I'm sure whenever Hamilton inevitably gets made into a movie, that's going to be a lot of people's favorites.
I always like Wicked. Like,
Wicked's
I know that's a Broadway thing. I don't know if it really got turned into a movie or anything of the sort. But I remember we sang a lot of songs from Wicked on choir.
You were in choir?
I was in choir for 2 years, yeah.
Oh.
Off and on. It's like 1 year I took band in middle school, and then as soon as I started high school, it was choir. Then sophomore I didn't, and then junior I took it, and
high school, yes.
Senior. Senior year I did.
The last level, high school.
The last level. Yeah, no. So yeah, I was in choir. I was an alto. Anyway. And
yes, she doesn't sing unless there's already a song playing.
Yeah, I've learned my lessons. I've learned, believe me.
Then next I want to talk about my favorite movie is Baby Driver. And its soundtrack is it's just a bunch of older songs ranging from like 70s to early 90s with like 2 originals in it, and one of them's a cover. But it's more of a, and this also goes towards the Guardians of the Galaxy series. They're more like compilation albums, which have pivotal roles in the films. To Baby Driver, to like the actual rhythm of the blocking and acting. Like, music is such a big deal. Like, especially that opening sequence with the Harlem Shuffle and stuff. It's really good. And then Egyptian reggae and stuff. Not important. But they're just the director writers of these actually like have these songs written into the script. This song plays here. This song does this kind of thing, and it's just really interesting. Then it also introduces people to an era of music that wasn't as big. Like for me, the big one out of Guardians was the Jay and the American song "Come a Little Bit Closer," which is from Guardians 2, when Raccoon and Yondu are killing everyone in the prison, like murdering everybody. Then there's like this poppy 60s swing kind of song playing in the background.
This is hilarious because you still don't have a script in front of you, so you're just pulling this straight out of memory.
Oh yeah, no, because I like this a lot. And then I think the big one is from Guardians 1, like the big impact that Guardians had. And now that you've called me out, I'm blanking on the song title.
Yes!
It was the, I can't even remember the band name right now. God, stage fright.
You got this,
from
buddy.
Guardians 1, Hooked on a Feeling.
Mm.
I still can't remember who sings that song.
Bjorn?
Bjorn sings Hooked on a Feeling? No.
Hooked on a Feeling, yeah.
Really? Bjorn Skiffs? Who the hell's Bjorn Skiffs?
And Blue Suede?
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was somebody else. I thought it was like REM or something.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's actually by BJ Thomas, but the famous version is Blue Suede, yeah. Oh, okay. Ooga chaka, yeah. Okay, well then I'm not upset then, because I never in a million years would have gotten that. But that was a big song in the, 80s or something like that, and that got reignited. Like a lot of that soundtrack got a lot of people interested in the old school music, which I thought was cool.
It's actually kind of funny that you say that too, because I've noticed, and I've said this a lot to probably Mallory out of all people, because I've noticed a lot of pop artists are kind of bringing back that like 80s vibe in their music, like The Weeknd specifically, but a lot of like pop songs now kind of have like that 80s twang to it, and a lot of like either their melodies or the chorus or something like that. And I'm wondering too if like Guardians of the Galaxy had a little bit to do with it, because it did popularize that like music again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of funny to think, like, could a movie like this really influence these artists like that?
I fully believe it could. And then even to like just in that same ballpark, not entirely related by any means, but people like Bruno Mars, he helped bring back Motown.
Oh yeah,
like, that was a style that died out in like the 70s, and then
who does he work with? Mark Ronson. I was right. Okay, so Bruno Mars worked with Mark Ronson. Uptown Funk was a really popular song, but for some reason Mark Ronson was super like familiar to me, even though this is before I really looked into music. Yeah. So I was kind of thinking like, how do I know this guy? And it wasn't until later on in college when I took a documentary course and we had to watch different docs, and I ended up watching the Amy doc. He was the one who came up with the melody for Back to Black.
Really?
With Amy Winehouse, yeah. Because there was a thing where he did an interview, and he was talking about how he did the whole melody for Back to Black, and he was showing it to her, and he goes, she didn't say anything to me. She didn't bob her head. She didn't really do anything. She just sat there and listened to it. And then when it was done, he goes, do you like it? And she goes, well, put it in the studio. So he put it in the thing, and she went in and recorded Back to Black.
Like one take, kind of, essentially?
Almost, pretty much.
Just like right there on the spot, though.
Yeah, came out, and he was like, okay. So it was kind of weird having somebody who had that sort of R&B soul that Amy Winehouse had to, like...
jazz, I would even say. Yeah,
to this, like Bruno Mars's, like, Motown sound is super interesting to me.
He's a very diverse producer, then, yeah. I'm just gonna throw out some thoughts here. The movie 2 Weeks Notice, Sandra Bullock, Hugh Grant. Never saw it once, but everybody knows the main song from the soundtrack is Counting Crows' Color of Big Yellow Taxi. Don't it always seem to go?
Oh my God, no!
And it features Vanessa Carlton. Never saw the movie, and I'm not even inherently, I don't know what it's about even, but I love the cover of that song.
I love that song.
Here's a really hot take. I had not seen the original Aladdin until I was 22. And then I saw the remake, the live action version in 2019.
Didn't we all go see that?
Yeah, your brother was there too. Will Smith's version of Friends Like Me is miles ahead of Robin Williams' version. Robin Williams should not be a singer. Should not be a musician. It was fun and silly, and like I'm not saying it's bad, but if anybody says it's objectively better, I'm like, who knows? Take a seat, son.
I think if anyone could play Genie that wasn't Robin Williams, Will Smith is
a good option.
Is a very good option, especially too with how when Disney has been remaking these, they've either gone full musical or not really that musical at all. And Aladdin
wasn't the musical, the remake.
Yeah. And Cinderella was barely, I think they had like maybe one or two songs throughout the whole thing, but it wasn't inherently a musical. Where Aladdin, the whole movie was like, let's put as much music in it as possible.
But like reimaginings of the originals with one original song.
You could tell too that it had every other scene they redid the song, and a lot of the times it worked out. It didn't feel cliche, it didn't feel tacky, and it didn't really feel fake, which I think is very interesting for Disney to pull off.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty much ripping off their own stuff.
It helps them keep a copyright.
True. Because I was going to say, like... trademark. Because I was going to say, too, like, it's really hard for a group like Disney... Like, Beauty and the Beast. The live action, it's decent. It's a very good version of it because I like both of the main actors. Like, Emma Watson and... his name escapes me right now, but he played Legion. Dan Stevens. There we go.
You got there.
I got there. Like, I like both of those actors. I think they did a wonderful job reimagining it. The songs were awful.
Were they?
They felt really tacky. Like, really, you could tell that they were kind of just ripping themselves off. And then they had the Ariana Grande's version of Love as Old as Time. And it did not feel right to the whole movie.
You need to have Angela Lansbury singing that.
Yeah, it didn't feel right. So the whole time I was just like, ugh. So when Aladdin came out, I was like 50-50, yeah. So I'm like, I do like Aladdin. At this point, I'll go into it with an open mind, but I'm really hoping that it doesn't turn out to feel like it does in Beauty and the Beast, and it didn't. It turned out so great.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and I think Will Smith had a lot to do with it, too.
Well, I mean, you have a guy who's most famous for being an actor, but who got his start as a musician.
Yeah.
So, Fresh Prince, dude. It's actually kind of funny you bring up Cinderella, because I hadn't planned on talking about it at all.
Cinderella.
Who are you, Mallory? On my thing, I have a song by a guy Nick Murphy. The song is called Aeon, and it was I found it because it was in the trailer for Cinderella. I never saw Cinderella, but I loved the trailer music, so I went and got the song.
Oh my God.
God, there was one other. I want to also talk about a movie that isn't a musical inherently. Like it's not about a musical, but whatever. The Wedding Singer.
Great.
The Wedding Singer. Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore.
Oh yeah.
Because Adam Sandler, while he is a comedian, a stand-up comedian, like at least on SNL, a lot of the stuff he was known for was his songs. Like SNL is where he made the Hanukkah song for and stuff like that original piece. So in Wedding Singer, there were. It was mostly covers because he is just a guy who sings at wedding receptions and stuff. But the song, I think the one original song, the one actual original song is I'll Grow Old with You, or I Want to Grow Old with You, or something like that. And it's a really sweet song, especially in the context of the movie. There was also another original song about his heartbreak that he sings for Drew Barrymore's character, but it's meant to be silly. It might not even be on the actual soundtrack. But otherwise, he covered songs like "You Spin Me Right Round" or "Like a Record Right Round." He covered "Love Stinks" when he was heartbroken. Then the soundtrack also had the Smiths song "How Soon Is Now." Did you know the Smiths at all?
I know of them, yes.
You shut your mouth, how can you say I go about things the wrong way? I am human and I need to be loved. That's like a lot of people, my parents included, can't hear that song without thinking of Wedding Singer.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
One other movie album that I wanted to talk about, and you're probably going to laugh just a little bit.
Probably.
But it's Divergent. The Divergent soundtrack.
I don't know anything about it. I've never saw the movies, never listened to the soundtrack. I just know that it's a movie that's easy to make fun of. That's all I know about it. That's all I know about it.
So, context for people who don't know what I'm talking about and were asleep for that whole, like, random rise and fall of that series. Divergent was originally a book series. It was set in like this dystopian thing where you're set into factions, whether you're truthful, brave, smart, or selfless.
There's a fifth category. You're divergent. That's how the first movie ends, right?
Something to that.
She's divergent or something.
Yeah,
like
that happens like right in the beginning of the movie, and she spends the rest of the movie trying to hide the fact that she doesn't really fit in.
So you can tell it's based more for a younger audience. Then it got turned into, I think they did the first 3 movies, and then the rest of it was supposed to be a TV series that fell through because Shailene Woodley went signed to it, which I don't blame her, because at that point, the last book is not the best anyway. But we're not going to go into that. That's not what we're here for.
Remember, I Am Number 4.
Hey, I've seen that movie too. But yeah, no, it has a great soundtrack. So the first movie, I think, by far was the best. They did the best with like the hype up for it, pulling a lot of different artists together. The whole movie itself, everything fits in very well. They did the book a decent amount of credit.
Okay.
And they did a really good job of almost maturing the movie through their music.
Okay.
Because they pulled in like Ellie Goulding, Zed, Matthew Coma, who is married to Hilary Duff, fun fact.
Cool.
Snow Patrol, Tame Impala, M83. They pulled in a lot of decent people for this.
Did this movie come out in the early 10s, like 2011 or something like that?
2014. 2 really good songs to pull from it was Find You, that's the Zed, Matthew Coma, and Miriam Bryant. The music video is really cute for it, too. But that and Beating Heart from Ellie Goulding. Those 2 songs are a highlight of it. I really like both of them. But band that I kind of pull from this a lot is Woodkid. They have Run Boy Run and I Love You. Both of them are featured in the movie, and they're super good. But Run Boy Run actually got really popular really randomly because it starts with this like bell toll.
I like it.
It's such a good song.
I don't remember any of these songs coming out around this time at all. I obviously never saw Divergent, so...
Yeah, it was actually, like... I think the only one that really got super
popular was I See Monsters, which is an Ellie Goulding, and... it's Hanging On, I See Monsters remix from Ellie Goulding and I See Monsters.
I see monsters.
Monsters.
I see monsters.
I don't say that to be
I'm
dorky.
seeing monsters here.
But those songs came out just in time for around the summertime. They were super kind of low key. Still kind of had that like 2013, 2014 like production feel to them because they were kind of not EDM-y, but they had the high production in it, and you can tell. But they fit it so perfectly into the movie, and each one went very well with the overall feeling of it that I was like very impressed with how it all melded together.
Okay.
And then, speaking of using songs very well, have you ever seen the TV show Lucifer?
No, I know it takes place in DC's Hell, though, or is based on a character from DC's Hell.
So that gets featured a lot in the CW series now, because he had his like mini cameo with Constantine and a few characters from Arrow.
You are dipping your toes into a bath I'm about to be cannonballing into in a second.
So Lucifer was originally a TV show on Fox, and then it aired for 3 seasons on Fox, got dropped after the 3rd season. Netflix picked them up for the next 2. What Fox did really well with this series, and what the TV show itself did really well, is fit in a lot of different songs from a very classical rock and roll era.
Like 80s classic rock, or are you talking like 60s, like Elvis, Beatles?
Kind of a mix almost, because they have a lot of like I know this isn't like particularly the oldest one, but they have Stairway to Heaven, but in the same thing it could be him at a piano doing another rendition of Creep. Like it's very good how they incorporate the music to fit the devil's like mindset at the time, and it's super interesting, and they did very well. They have like a remix of Tove Lo's Talking Body. It's so good. It's way more sexual now. Like, if you thought the first, like, the original was, like,
The song's
a little
about
risque,
having sex.
yeah. No, it got worse. Like,
Oh, boy.
the original's, like, risque. This is, like, worse. Like, you cannot play this on the radio.
Okay. And when you said Creep by Radiohead?
Yeah. So he did a rendition of that. There's a song, The Day Is My Enemy. I really like that song. It's very kind of EDM-ish. It's not quite dubstep, but it's not quite EDM.
Just
but
an
it's
electronic song.
Yeah, but it's very electronic, and they have a snare drum beat in it. It is my favorite thing. Every time they get to like this drum solo, I like crank it. It is so good. I'm not kidding.
Usually a snare drum's noteworthy for being like a drum roll. This isn't.
Yeah, no,
this isn't like that. Okay.
No, because it fits in very well with the overall song.
Okay.
So, yeah, Lucifer was a very well done thing when it comes to Fox building playlists and stuff for that. But, fun fact, we can go into that a little more in a different episode featuring more TV shows and things like that. So also, if you guys have any recommendations, let us know.
I am always open to watching a new movie. Even though I have money for the soundtrack, I will always watch a new movie.
And if you can pull anything from TV shows, Shazam works wonders, but sometimes it just doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
But if you can pull something from a TV show that you want us to see or listen to in that episode, let us know.
Honorable mention that we didn't really talk about, and I wouldn't have had that much to say. Pitch Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And another movie kind of all about the soundtrack and covers, and then whatever.
That's my introduction to college.
I saw that my freshman year. No, that's not true. I saw it my senior year. I saw it the summer before my freshman year.
I saw it late, so I saw it by the time I was graduating high school and going into college. My choir class watched it all together.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, oh my god, this is what college is going to be like. It's not what college is like, guys. It's 50-50.
It's not what your freshman year is like.
Yeah, no.
No one understands the amount of freedom they have their freshman year. Not like those kids did. Not important. But yeah, so this episode went on a lot longer than we had planned on. We plan on doing both movies and TVs now, but it's already substantially lengthier than the usual time slot we go for. So we're just going to save primarily TV soundtracks and then maybe get more into video games as well in case, whatever, next episode. So, with that suspenseful cliffhanger, thank you all for listening.
If you're not following us on Facebook, give us a like because we have updates. If you haven't seen yet, for our 4th episode, we have a playlist that we have attached to it, so you can go and watch all of the music videos that we talked about in the episode. And if you guys have any recommendations for us, please let us know because we will be doing another music video episode soon.
Easily, like that. You even mentioned towards the end of that episode that this will probably be something of a series. We would come back to it time and time again.
Especially with summer coming up and everybody getting out of quarantine, like music videos are the best way to just start anything. So
yeah.
I walked into my parents listening to it. I walked in and it was your voice in my house and I was like, what's going on?
Why is he here?
I kind of like froze and I'm like, Alex? And then I heard my voice and I was like, oh no! So we definitely have 2 people listening.
We don't have 4 people listening because I discovered on Mother's Day. My mother's like, "When's the next episode of your podcast coming out?" I heard episode 1 and I didn't listen to anything else. I'm like, "It's bi-weekly. It should always be up there." I was subscribed to it, but nothing ever told me. So I'm like, "Oh no, whatever."
Oh, I love it. I love parents supporting us. Thank you guys.
But yes, so thank you all for listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with more soundtracks. Bye.
Bye.
That's what you did the end of the